All right, ladies and gentlemen, what is going on? Welcome on into today's edition of Sixers game recap. As we're looking back at Wednesday nights, I'm talking demolishing of the Chicago Bulls. And this one, they win 116-91. This is a game where the Sixers, right from the jump, right from the tip-off, took control of this basketball game. And this is what you want to see after Monday night's double OT loss, where the Sixers allowed the game to kind of get away from themselves. Obviously, Joel Embiid leaves the game, getting fouled out in the second overtime. James Harden, we'll talk about his injury news in just a little bit. Obviously, we have a little bit more news of what happened on that night. A little bit of a nagging foot injury, and as we all saw, his performance was not good. 5 points, even though he did give us 12 assists, it's just not going to get it done, even with the likes of the Chicago Bulls, who are fighting for playoff spots. You know, they're in that play, they're in those 4 play-in spots, but they're in the basement. So for them, these games are more important than for the Sixers. For the Sixers right now, you're just trying to get ready for the playoffs. Yeah, you are looking for your seating positioning, but you're trying to get those little things out of the way. So, like the defense, the transitional defense, obviously offensively things have been moving very, very well. But the one thing that we always talk about, especially for the playoffs, is you're going to need guys to step up who don't typically do. That's what playoff championship caliber teams do. Obviously, this team has Joel Embiid and James Harden, and we know that they can lead the way on any given night. But you're going to need guys like Tyrese Maxey, like Tobias Harris, heck, like a guy like you look at DeAnthony Melton, you look at Georges Niang. Obviously, we talked about PJ Tucker at length over the week and his importance to this basketball team as we head into the playoffs. But overall, it's going to be a team effort come playoff time. This is a really good just array of good teams that we have here in the Eastern Conference. No one has really separated themselves too far apart. And so for the Sixers, it's all about keeping up with those big boys. And we're gearing up for the playoffs. And for right now, we are liking the way this team has been looking, to say the least. But I want to welcome everyone into today's edition of Sixers Game Recap. Of course, I'm your host, El Parcero Philly, the united of all things sports and culture here in the beautiful city of Philadelphia. If you guys are enjoying today's content, do me the solid. Hit that like button, subscribe for more Philly sports. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, you can find us wherever you stream podcasts from Apple, Google, and Spotify. Find us under Oi in Philly Sports. All right, so heading into this game, obviously the main thing that we all saw following that bad performance against the Bulls on Monday night in Philadelphia, we noticed James Harden did not have himself a good performance. And so James Harden, after 5 points, after the game, while everyone is taking care of interviews and press conferences, James Harden leaves right away, gets an MRI. It looks like he does have a sore Achilles. That's all we really have. We don't have much more details. All we know is that his Achilles is sore. And so we don't know the full extent of what that is. Obviously, an Achilles is super important, especially for a guard, someone at that position who cuts a lot. I mean, this sport in general, you got to do a lot of cuts. But that's definitely big for James Harden, and we're going to keep monitoring that and seeing where he's at with that. But that was definitely a big set of news, and we're going to wait and see. It does seem like the Sixers are optimistic. The thought is that he will be back by this weekend, so we'll see, and we'll keep an eye out what's going on with that. But definitely that was a little bit alarming, seeing his bad performance in Chicago. But it was there was a reason. There's always a reason, and there was that reason on Monday night. So you go into this game without James Harden. I mean, offensively, I wasn't really too concerned, but, shooting wasn't very good on Monday night, and so I wanted to see how that would turn around on Wednesday night. And just defensively in general, locking down in the crucial moments. The Chicago got into a big lead on Monday, and Sixers found a way to cut it back, and it was a close game down the wire, even in overtime, even both overtimes. It was like a 2-point game for most of those periods. So it's for in this game, you really wanted to see the Sixers shoot a little bit better and contain the Bulls for 4 quarters, and that's really what they did. They jumped out into like an early, I think it was like 11 or 13-0 lead. Chicago the Sixers just caught them looking. That's really what it was, and the Sixers just took advantage of it. And I want to say this. So just right off the jump, this wasn't a Joel Embiid game. I mean, we'll talk about Joel Embiid in a second, but he only played 16 minutes and he had 12 points. So it really wasn't a Joel Embiid night. One thing that got me, I was giddy while I was watching this. In the second quarter, the Sixers offense is going into their mode. What I noticed a lot of two-man game with Tobias and Tyrese Maxey. I was loving it. And even Joel Embiid was still in the game, and the offense was still going through Tyrese Maxey and Tobias Harris. The 1-2 game. And you saw some ISO ball. You saw Tobias Harris going out and taking advantage of those mismatches. They're putting Kobe White on Tobias Harris. He's backing down dudes posting up. Tyrese Maxey knocking down open shots, driving to the rack. DeAnthony Melton being that free winger, knocking down his shots. We talk about 5 3-points knocked down on Monday night. Let's talk about 4 last night. DeAnthony Melton loving playing against the Chicago Bulls. And just like that, a lot of it had to do with those 3 points. This was a collective performance, in my honest opinion. But that to me, seeing Tyrese and Tobias lead the way, that was beautiful. Like we talked about at the top of this, if you want to go on a championship run, having guys like Tyrese and Tobias take over when need be, that's extremely important. Especially even with James and Joel out there. Because we've seen in the playoffs last year, James and Joel are going to have their off nights. You're going to need guys to step up. And seeing your 3 and your 4, as far as your scoring player priorities, go off, that was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Tobias with 20 points here on Wednesday night, 33 minutes. He was 5 of 9 from the field, 3 of 5 from the 3-point line. He was knocking down them open threes, 7 of 8 from the free throw line. He added on 9 boards and 8 assists. He nearly had himself a triple-double. He was that impressive. And we should have seen that coming. When there's no James and there's no Joel, Tobias always steps up. He takes advantage of that opportunity, and he's able to find his spots again. Because we know his role has kind of been relegated back down to the spot-up shooter. And, Tobias has a lot more to his game. And you love seeing Tobias Harris getting into it, being productive when there is no Joel Embiid or James Harden. And then feeding off of Tyrese Maxey and in his energy. And you know what Tyrese brings. He changes the pace of the game. When he's on, he's a lethal shooter from the 3-point line. 21 points, 37 minutes, leading all Sixers in minutes on the night. 8 of 19 from the field, 4 of 8 from a 3-point line. It was a pretty efficient shooting night for the Sixers. 50% from the 3-point line, which is also pretty damn good. You also had from Tyrese Maxey 5 boards. He had 1 steal and 4 assists. But Tyrese and Tobias were the story of the night, as they really did a great job of leading the way here for the Sixers and getting the big dub that they absolutely needed. Let's talk real quick about Joel Hans Embiid. For JoJo, 12. Like we talked about, 16 minutes, 12 points. He would leave the late second quarter with what appears to be a calf strain. Now, we thought that it was for rest because the reporting wasn't clear. Was he out? Did he leave the game because of the calf? Did he leave the game because the Sixers were trying to get him rest? And that we don't know. But he did. There was a clip that surfaced on Twitter that looked like he did grab onto that left calf. And so we're going to have to continue monitoring, seeing exactly how Joel and that calf are. But I don't think that, and I'll put James Harden in this category as well. I don't think that either injury is, worth being, panicking over, because you still have plenty of time before the playoffs. Right now, if you got injuries, have it right now, because you have about 10, 11 games left before the end of the regular season. It's plenty of time to recover and get yourself ready for the playoffs. So if Doc's handling this the right way, if there's any soreness, anything, just sit. That's all you got to do. We know what this team has. We don't need to see what this team has on a Wednesday night game in Chicago. So I think that was the best case scenario. And the Sixers took care of business in the second half. Paul Reed ran a lot at the 5. You saw some PJ Tucker at the 5 as well. He had 24 minutes here. But it was good seeing him back in there. Obviously, when you don't have James Harden. Or also, don't forget, we still are without Jalen McDaniels, and he's still recovering from that hip injury. He tried to come back, didn't look right, and so he's sitting out again. So we're gonna have to wait and see what else comes about that. But George Niang, 11 points, 3 of 7 from the 3-point line. He was much looked more intuitive into the game, and that was very very pleased to see. 5 points each from Daniel House and Shake Milton. One 3-point shot knocked down by Daniel House. Who else you got here? PJ 5 points in 24 minutes. You saw Dwayne Dedman time. We saw some time for Dwayne Dedman out there. He had 2 points and 9 minutes for Dwayne freaking Dedman. Montrezl Harrell, Jaden Springer, Furkan Korkmaz. It was that type of night where those guys saw at least 3 minutes at the end of the game. Doc was able to put them out there, but it was a much different game Wednesday than it was on Monday night. And look, for the Bulls, they have been playing much better. They're going on a little bit of a good streak that since I believe 2 weeks ago, and like we talked about, they are in the basement of the play-in round for the Eastern Conference. So for them, they're just trying to stay afloat and maybe possibly move up in the seeding. But it's a good team, and it's the thing we talked about on Monday. It's a good team with good talent. Still got Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan. I like Colby White as a change-up guard. He saw a lot of minutes here tonight. Obviously, Nikola Vucevic we know very well here in Philadelphia. He's still bitter about that Andrew Bynum trade. It's wild, but Andre Drummond coming off the bench. We all know about Andre Drummond. So it's a lot of solid talent on that team. Billy Donovan is a solid coach. If you guys go back to the 2021 offseason, that's who I wanted. I wanted Billy Donovan as our coach. And then he wound up taking the Bulls job. And so Jason Kidd time, he takes the Mavs job. And, Doc Rivers popped up. And I'm like, all right, whatever. And I look back at it now, Doc is what it is. But you are getting a championship caliber coach. And you can say what you want about Doc Rivers. The dude has, he makes that comment about the Clippers, about how he made Clippers basketball relevant. But if you really think about it, he kind of did. I mean, before he got there, Vinny Del Negro took a good, young, solid squad and, made them into a valuable playoff team. But that was talent. That was a talented team. Doc Rivers made him into a contender every single season. And, he obviously won the chip with the Celtics, over 2,000 years ago. And, even with the Sixers now, first year, number 1 seed, go to the second round. Second year, still go to the second round. And his first years, we can say what we want. The second round frustrations is on the Sixers team, not so much on Doc Rivers because it's only been 2. The first one, you could probably blame Ben Simmons for that one. The second one, you can blame a little bit to Doc. Obviously, Joel's injury hurt, and you just didn't have a deep team. It just was what it was. But right now with the Sixers team, I'm in a good place. I'm really excited for the playoffs. I think a lot of fans don't feel the same way because of the second round, nausea. But this team, if you watch them, you cannot sit here and tell me that this is the same team we have seen in years past. I still feel that this is the best team Joel Embiid's played with. I think it's a deeper team. I think if you look at some of the forms of these players, like James Harden, when he is healthy, he clearly is the engine of this Sixers offense. Tonight, you were able to get away with the fact that the iso ball with Toby and Tyrese really got going, and Chicago couldn't stop it. And it opened up things for other guys like D'Anthony Melton or Georges Niang. And so that, to me, is why I feel much better about the Sixers team. It's a much deeper squad. And come playoff time, anything can happen. But obviously, we're just going to keep an eye out for all three. Let's throw in Jalen McDaniels in there as well. We're keeping an eye out on Joel Embiid. We're keeping an eye out on James Harden. We're keeping an eye out on Jalen McDaniels. And we're going to hope that things do get a little bit we do hope that things do get better. Interesting article here on Sixers Wire by Kai Carlin. Great Sixers writer here. Headline: Sixers single out P.J. Tucker. Defense after easy road win over Bulls. Let me see here. Let me see if I can find. This is an interesting article here. So, look, PJ last night. Let me see if I can find that plus minus. And that's why I tell you guys. That's why like this week has been a lot about PJ Tucker, because I truly believe that PJ Tucker is the key to the Sixers come playoff time. We talked about it before. Defense is more important in the playoffs than we all had thought of, and especially myself, even last year. I remember that whole James Harden trade, and I remember saying I don't mind trading Matisse Thybulle because defense hasn't gotten us too far. But it's weird because you need that perfect balance in order to win. And so offense is fine. It is clearly fine. The pick and roll game with James and Joel, having scorers like Tyrese Maxey and Tobias Harris, and then role players like George Niang, DeAnthony Melton, that's going to be okay. And then there's PJ Tucker, who I believe is going to lead the way defensively. Not Joel Embiid. PJ Tucker. And that's what you kind of saw here tonight. Especially when you're missing players. He's so vocal. You see him on the court. You see him, in between plays, directing players, telling them what to do. And the players just reciprocate well to, because he's a veteran guy and he's earned that respect. And that's why you paid the money to PJ Tucker, because you never had that. You never ever have had that. So it is very interesting. So next up for our Sixers here, ladies and gentlemen, they are back, and it's a busy weekend. Tomorrow they start one of two in a back-to-back, and it's a tough back-to-back. And we talked about this last week. You got the Warriors tomorrow night. You're going to be on the road. So you're in Chicago right now. Oh, I guess now they left. You're heading over to the West Coast. One against Golden State, one against Phoenix on Saturday. I'll have to double check on the status of KD, because I do know he was injured. I'm not sure if he's back yet. We'll wait to see about that. But it's going to be a tough test here. And if you don't have James and Joel, don't freak out if we lose games. But what you want to see, these are great tests for your young players, for Tyrese Maxey, for Tobias Harris, and the bunch that you kind of saw here tonight. So I'm excited for this weekend. Even if we get swept, you want to see the little things. You want to see the progressions from some of these players. But we'll see what happens. Thank you so much. That's going to do it for today's Sixers game recap. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Make sure you guys hit that like button. Subscribe for more Philly sports. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, I go by the name Parcero Philly, and I'm telling you guys, let's go Philly sports. Talk to you guys soon.